I have a box of creamies here. It's a great product and they're made not too far from here. So my daughter wanted me to go ahead and freeze dry some of these for the holiday for gift giving. So here we go. We have chocolates, we have orange and vanilla. Lots of cracks in here. I think the only thing that's keeping these things together is a popsicle stick. So these actually turned out pretty well, and it only took about 20 hours to do these. I normally will do regular ice cream, and I'll be doing that next, but this is just another idea for people who have freeze dryers. Okay, so in they go. This is just a test sample, and I've removed the shelves just so you can see what's going on. We're going to turn on the vacuum. Okay, I've reached 3 minutes and 500 millitorr, and it looks like the only thing that reacted were the actual gummy worms. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and release. There was a little bit of moisture probably in my drain tube there when I released the vacuum. So we have no reaction whatsoever to the licorice. Of course, we know the gummy worms do what they do. I'm disappointed that these Sour Patch things didn't do anything at all, because they're basically a gummy worm inside. And then the peanut butter cups, I left one in the foil, left one in the paper just to see if it would hold together, and it did absolutely nothing. So the only reaction was the gummy worms. So this was just a little test piece, so don't waste your money on licorice. The Sour Patch Kid things, Reese's peanut butter cups, we already knew a long time ago that the peanut butter cups don't do well. If I can't get this to change form at 190 degrees down to an almost perfect vacuum, I don't think it's going to change in a regular freeze-dry cycle either. So, live and learn. So the test continues. We have saltwater taffy, cinnamon bear, we have a Mentos, we have a dot, we got a piece of York peppermint patty, we have about the only candy bar I can eat, which is a payday bar, a hot tamale, bit of honey, and a milk dud. So we're going to throw this in the oven. We're going to start the temperature at 145 for 10 minutes and see what happens. Okay, so we have the saltwater taffy right here that did something, the milk dud, the bit of honey, and the York peppermint patty. Everything else, nothing happened. But the York peppermint patty, that surprised me. That's a good surprise. And so is the bit of honey, because I love bit of honey. So our next load is going to be in for 15 minutes. I put these two trays in the freeze dryer after I put them in the oven. So this one was in the oven at 145 degrees for 10 minutes, then I put it in the freeze dryer. Well, traditional things went just fine. So we have the saltwater taffy, and then we have the milk duds. A new thing I tried that worked out pretty good so far is the bit of honey. The gummy bear didn't do anything, the Mentos didn't do anything, the York peppermint patty swelled up a little bit, then dropped. The dot didn't do anything. The payday bar or the hot tamale didn't do anything. So I tried the oven again for 15 minutes. Got a bigger reaction out of the saltwater taffy, the milk dud really flamed up. The bit of honey flamed up even more, and so did the York peppermint patty. The salted nut, the payday bar swelled up a little bit, but still nothing out. Oh, and the mint toast kind of did the thing like with the Skittles, where the inside kind of swelled and broke the shell. So not happy with that one, I went for 20 minutes in 145. The milk dud really flamed up, but it swelled up so much that it just kind of came brittle. However, the bit of honey really swelled up, and at 25 minutes this bit of honey probably swelled up to the maximum amount. The York peppermint patty was pretty much the same, and of course the saltwater taffy swelled up even more, but it gets to the point where it swells up so much it becomes brittle and it's not fun anymore. But the thing I'm really disappointed in, and I even went even further, but the cinnamon bears didn't do anything, the hot tamales didn't do anything, the dots didn't do anything, the Mentos just basically broke the shell and oozed out. So, and the payday bar didn't do much. So pretty much the same old with freeze drying candy, with the exception of the bit of honey and the York peppermint patty. Those kind of worked a little bit. The York peppermint patty at first was kind of sticky, but it has solidified and looks like I'm going to add to my candy list the bit of honey and the York peppermint patty to the standard freeze-dried candy list. I guess the rule I'm developing for freeze-drying candy is, in its natural state, the candy has to be hard, but then it has to be able to melt and then go hard again. So I think that's why the dots never worked out well, the cinnamon bears didn't work out well. I'm thinking maybe Jolly Ranchers might work out well. I might try experimenting with that the next time I do this. So what I'm going to do is I like the size of the taffy somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So I might put the saltwater taffy in the oven for 12 minutes at 145, and I'll probably do the same thing with the milk duds, and then I can go ahead and do those. So it looks like saltwater taffy and milk duds you can just do in the oven and then put in the freeze dryer just on vacuum without having to run an entire cycle. Same thing with the peppermint patty. So those are three other things. Oh, and the bit of honey. So in addition to the Skittles, we can add milk duds, saltwater taffy, and bit of honey, and York peppermint patty to the list of things you can freeze dry without going through an entire cycle. So we're going to give some of this stuff out for gifts, so I'm going to go ahead and do several trays worth. The caution with the saltwater taffy is sometimes the saltwater taffy can rise 2 to 3 inches, and if that's the case, it can actually rise high enough well it will hit the heating pad on the shelf right above it. And that's the same also with the milk duds. The milk duds can get as big as a baseball when I did it at 20 minutes and 145 degrees. So I'm going to do some trays of this and we'll see what happens. Here's my batch of saltwater taffy. Came out pretty good. So I would suggest, if you want to do the quick freeze dry or whatever you want to call it, 145 degree oven. That's usually the keep warm setting. So 145, 15 minutes in the oven, and then 15 minutes in the freeze dryer under vacuum only. The 15 minutes will allow the taffy to dry and to cool down so it doesn't shrink back down. So this, along with my freeze-dried ice cream and other treats, will be the gift to my neighbors this season. And this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 3 by 7 on each tray. As you can see, it does pretty good. These right here, I only left these in for about 10 minutes in the freeze dryer, and so when I released the vacuum, they shrank down a little bit. So this was 10 minutes, this is 15 minutes. So 15 minutes for a cool down time, and you'll keep the size. Here's my batch of Milk Duds, and they're also under the 15-15 rule. So at 145 degree temperature oven, 15 minutes in the oven, and then 15 minutes in the freeze dryer, vacuum only. And that's enough time for everything to cool down so that these are nice and like crispy little treats. And these are also 3 by 7 on each tray. And I have parchment paper down on the bottom. This is my second batch of Milk Duds, and unfortunately I forgot to set the kitchen timer, and so I had to guesstimate how long they were in there, and I think they went too long because these really bubbled up. I mean they're so brittle. So timing is really everything. 15 minutes is the max. And then I just finished up the rest of the bit of honey I had right here, and these came out to be pretty good. These are the York peppermint patties. So everything here is, 15 minutes oven, 15 minutes vacuum. So this is the follow-up to my 8-minute Skittles. When I first did the Skittles, I only did 50 grams worth, and it worked out just fine. This is 3 bags worth of Skittles. And with the greater the mass, it's going to cool down the oven when you put all these Skittles in here. And so you might have to tweak the time, say from 5 minutes to maybe 8 minutes. So these Skittles right here were all in for the traditional 5 minutes. So I went through the Skittles and I took out the ones, it's like popcorn. I took out the ones that didn't pop. I'm going to put these back in the oven for another cycle, but this time I'm going to put them in for 9 minutes. So here are all my Skittles. This is 5 bags worth. We're going to be doing this for our neighbors and give them away for the Christmas season. One little note. So this is a tray right here that had all the unpopped Skittles. So I went ahead and put them back into the oven. I think I put them in for 7 minutes and back into the freeze dryer under vacuum only. And all the ones that didn't pop, they went ahead and popped, and they're just fine. So depending on where you live, I know altitude does have a factor in temperature, and depending how many Skittles you put on a tray, all this is basically 5 bags. When I did my first test sample, I only did 50 grams. So if you don't like how the Skittles come out the first time, if they're just barely cracked open, you can put them back into the oven, warm them up again, and put a vacuum on them. Now when they do come out of the Harvest Right freeze dryer, they're still going to be warm, so they're going to be kind of gooey in a sense, and they're going to be hard to pull apart. But if you let them cool down, then they'll come apart quite easy. So we're continuing to learn things. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, please let me know. I'm interested in what you think. Please subscribe and give me a like, and we'll continue on the quest. One more thing about Skittles. If you want a good family activity, there's a thing called the Skittles game. And the rules are pretty simple. Get a couple big bags of Skittles. Okay, put them in a bowl in the middle of your table. Now you could probably play the game with these Skittles, but you may not want to, waste your freeze-dried Skittles. But just get your regular Skittles and put them in a bowl, and then get 2 dice, and you roll the dice, and whatever the dice falls onto, except for double sixes and snake eyes, if it falls on anything but those, like 4 or 9 or whatever the number might be, that's how many Skittles you have to take out of the bowl, and you put them in your mouth. And you just put them in your mouth. You don't do anything else. You hold them in your mouth. And then the person next to you takes his turn and he rolls the dice or whatever. Now, if you roll double sixes,
you get to start to chew, but you can't swallow. You can't swallow until you get snake eyes. It's a fun game, and if you're addicted to Skittles, you may not be addicted to Skittles after you play this game, but it's a fun family game to play. So try it out and see how it goes.